Let's revise what we've learned in the first 3 pages of the Collins Dictionary. Let's revise the sample sentences of the first 3 pages. Page 1. A waiter entered with a tray. He started eating an apple. Today you've got a new teacher taking you. I manage a hotel. I suggest you leave it to an expert. Bring a sleeping bag. I was waiting for a bus. There was a terrible sadness in her eyes. Bollinger RD is a rare, highly prized wine. I spend a lot on expensive jewelry and clothing. I've come looking for a bit of advice. Some parents believe a boy must learn to stand up and fight like a man. The interview took place on a Friday afternoon. I explained that I was an artist. He was now a teacher and a respectable member of the community. Most people have very little difficulty in seeing why a Van Gogh is a work of genius. More than 1,000 acres of land, a quarter of an hour. Prices start at £13.95 a meter for printed cotton. The helicopter can zip along at about 150 kilometers an hour. Cars are for getting people from A to B in maximum safety. Roland was taken aback by our strength of feeling. He claimed that his parents had abandoned him. The road is strewn with abandoned vehicles. The authorities have abandoned any attempt to distribute food. Logic had prevailed, and he had abandoned the idea. Once again, logic had prevailed, and he had abandoned the idea. He had spent money with gay abandon. All that digging had left a network of abandoned mines and tunnels. Memories of her father's complete abandonment of her. Constant reinforced the abandonment of the next day's competitions. He looked abashed, uncomfortable. The storms had abated by the time they rounded Cape Horn. The abatement of carbon dioxide emissions. Noise abatement. Page 2. He abbreviated his first name to Alec. The postal abbreviation for Kansas is KS. The ABC of Marxism. The last French king was Louis Philippe, who abdicated in 1848. The most serious royal crisis since the abdication of Edward VIII. Many parents simply abdicate all responsibility for their children. There had been a complete abdication of responsibility. Vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. His car was held up and he was abducted by 4 gunmen. She was charged with abducting a 6-month-old child. The abdication of 4 youths. She cooperated with her abductor. Ian's rages and aberrant behavior worsened. It became very clear that the incident was not just an aberration. His wife was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment for aiding and abetting him. The saga is not over, merely in abeyance. Once again, the saga is not over, merely in abeyance. He was a man who abhorred violence and was deeply committed to reconciliation. They are anxious to show their abhorrence of racism. Racial discrimination is abhorrent to my council and our staff. I can't abide people who can't make up their minds. They have got to abide by the rules. He has a genuine and abiding love of the craft. The public never had faith in his ability to handle the job. He has the ability to bring out the best in others. Her drama teacher spotted her ability. They repeatedly questioned his leadership abilities. Does the school cater for all abilities? I take care of them to the best of my abilities. Both of them died in abject poverty. This scheme was an abject failure. Both have failed abjectly. A formal statement abjuring military action. Shops, houses, and vehicles were set ablaze. The chamber was ablaze with light. The older child should be able to prepare a simple meal. The companies say they are able to keep pricing competitive. They seemed able to work together very efficiently. You'll be able to read in peace. It would be nice to be able to afford to retire earlier. One of the brightest and ablest members of the government. She is a very capable speaker. It's a team packed with experienced and mature professionals. New industries demand skilled labor not available locally. He was a loyal, distinguished, and very competent civil servant. Page 3. She was able-bodied and reasonably intelligent. He was ably assisted by a number of other members. Abnormal heart rhythms and high anxiety levels. A child with an abnormal fear of strangers. Abnormally high levels of glucose. Further scans are required to confirm the diagnosis of an abnormality. She invited 750 people aboard the luxury yacht, the Savarona. Once again, she invited 750 people aboard the luxury yacht, the Savarona. One more time. She invited 750 people aboard the luxury yacht, the Savarona. They said goodbye to him as he got aboard the train at Union Station. It had taken 2 hours to load all the people aboard. I went around the streets and found his new abode. 30% of psychiatric hospital beds are occupied by people of no fixed abode. The following year, Parliament voted to abolish the death penalty for murder. The abolition of slavery in Brazil and the Caribbean. There is no need to abandon the abolitionist principles as such. The president described the killings as an abominable crime. Chloe has behaved abominably. Wallace was often abominably rude. The islands are considered by the West Coast Aboriginals to be the place where time began. One more time. The islands are considered by the West Coast Aboriginals to be the place where time began. Aboriginal art. Her lover walked out on her after she had aborted their child. Tissue from aborted fetuses. The decision was made to abort the mission. His girlfriend had an abortion. An abortive attempt to prevent the current president from taking office. Stories abound about when he was in charge. The book abounds with close-up images from space. She came in for a coffee and told me about her friend Shona. She knew a lot about food. The neighbors complained about the noise. Leadership is about the ability to implement change. I'm sorry about Patrick, she said. I feel so guilty and angry about the whole issue. Rachel was going to do something about Jacob. I think there is something a little peculiar about the results of your test. In my local health center, there are about 40 parking spaces. The rate of inflation is running at about 2.7%. Everyone was running about. He wandered about the town, stopping to listen to bands. Helen threw her arms about him. There's lots of money about these days for schemes like this. I think he's about to leave. The film was about to start. Despite considerable pain, she has been getting out and about almost as normal. One more time. Despite considerable pain, she has been getting out and about almost as normal. They often saw me out and about. I was about to go home. Few observers believe the president would do an about-face and start spending more. He lifted his hands above his head. Apartment 46 was a quiet apartment, unlike the one above it. He was staring into the mirror above him. A long scream sounded from somewhere above. And this is the end of our revision of the first 3 pages' sample sentences.